there are opportunities with every property, but the real successful ones are the ones that where people roll up their sleeves and dig in and add value.
With us on location, Paul Massey, president of New York investment sales at Cushman Wakefield. Some background about our very distinguished guest. Paul was the co-founder of Massey Realty, a full-service brokerage firm with more than $5 billion that is, in annual sales. In 2014, Cushman Wakefield acquired Massey, and Paul became president of New York investment sales at Cushman Wakefield. With that intro, we give a very warm welcome to Paul Massey. Hello, Paul. How are you?
Fantastic. Yitzchok, thanks for having me. And
please, it's an honor.
Hello to your audience. I hear you've got a big one.
Well, thank you so much, and it's a real treat to land someone of your stature. As president of New York investment sales and a global, real estate services from Cushman Wakefield, who hasn't heard of Cushman Wakefield? What's your advice on spotting a great real estate deal?
The New York City market is a fantastic, very big, very dynamic market. But it's interesting. You more make a great investment than you spot one. You've got to find a property in an area and a market that you're passionate about. But then you've got to roll up your sleeves and do the work to make the property great. Almost every property is sold with a potential upside, re-tenant, reposition, release. There are opportunities with every property, but the real successful ones are the ones that where people roll up their sleeves and dig in and add value.
Now let's talk about your general knowledge of New York. Each neighborhood has its own uniqueness to it, has different ethnicities.
Mm-hmm.
How did you learn the new? You're doing New York real estate for 3 decades?
Yeah, the company where we started was very big on focus on what type of brokerage activity you're involved with: sales, leasing, industrial, retail, office, whatever it was. But very specific. They wanted us to very specifically dig in, but they also wanted us to dig in geographically. They wanted us to not be somewhat familiar with the whole city, but they wanted us to be experts in a specific submarket, which made all the sense in the world so that you could know trends and comparable sales and rents and zoning and everything that happened in that market, which there was simple genius in that. So we believe that investors or real estate people should really focus on one specific submarket, and then that puts them in a position to really do great things, add value, create value in properties. So we ended up doing something that was novel at the time 30 years ago, but we started out in Manhattan, and anyone who knows Manhattan knows it's very dense. We put a broker every 15 blocks. But that turned out to be simple genius in that, because every 15 blocks had about 1,000 buildings or 40 or 50 annual sales. So a significant number of investment opportunities. But then we filled up Manhattan. And so, what do you do next? We decided that we would go outside Manhattan. Instead of getting in a different business, we went into Queens, and Manhattan has 24,000 buildings. Queens, it turns out, had 55,000. We got brave. We went into Brooklyn. Before Brooklyn was Brooklyn, we got there early through a stroke of luck. And it was fantastic. So as it turns out, where there are a lot of property in Manhattan, 24,000 properties south of 96th Street, but there are 188,000 buildings in New York City. So it really is a big, fantastically big, dynamic market. But we have people working in every neighborhood, every submarket, teams. They're involved with the community. They're community involved in a good way. So that's our secret.
So it's walking the pavement. It's not just, let's say in today's environment where you got Google, could you just rely on all that new media, or you got to really?
Yep. We have, we're constantly telling our young people in training, look, every time you walk your neighborhood, you will bump into trip over a business opportunity. You'll see something that tips you off, and it never fails. Every time you're out walking in your market, you're going to learn something that benefits you.
Now, once we're talking about New York real estate, let's talk about New York in general. You've been working the turf for 3 decades. You've seen the city under Mayor Giuliani, Mayor Bloomberg. Care to comment on that?
Yeah, we talked about the fact that I'm from Boston, and the reason I'm in New York is that the Boston office of Coldwell Banker Commercial at the time, now CBRE, was a mature office. They had one opening, and they weren't going to give that opening to a college kid. They said I had done a nice job for them. I worked for them when I was in college. Mm-hmm. And I was crushed because I loved the company and I loved the industry. I had found what I really wanted to do. And they said, well, that's the bad news. The good news is that we just opened up brand new in New York City, and they'll take anybody down there. So being so qualified, I came to New York. But my battle plan was come here for a year or two and then head home. And I think it took me about 6 weeks, and I was fully in love with New York. I loved my career. I loved the city. Eventually, I met my wife, and we had our kids. So here I still am, and I am a huge fan of New York City. I love it here. I think that a lot of us are maybe, a lot of us can remember the way things were in New York when I was a young person here. And crime was a major issue. There were over 2,200 murders a year. There was graffiti all over the place. It was Times Square was not what it is now. It was a really rough place.
Sure. The subway's a mess.
Squeegee men were washing your windshield, whether you liked it or not. It was just so much. And the 2 mayors over the last 20 years, Giuliani for 8 and Bloomberg for 12, showed such great leadership. Giuliani took the city and took City Hall and organized it with CompStat and started looking at each one of his divisions essentially like they were a business, and created great performance. The people who worked for the city started feeling better about themselves, and I think Michael Bloomberg continued that and probably amazingly improved on even the great things that Mayor Giuliani did. So we've had 20 years of leadership, but right now I am a little concerned about where we're headed. I'm getting these feelings of potentially we're moving back to some of that stuff that I vividly remember from being a young person, and I'm concerned.
So now a couple years into the de Blasio administration, you have some reservations. Where the city's heading? Well,
I'm at an inflection point with our business, so I'm thinking about other things. We sold our business to Cushman Wakefield, who was a great company.
2014?
To December 2014. They're wonderful people. We've assimilated into their business in a very, very good way. But it's a serious inflection point. So I'm thinking, what's in store for the future for me, and I'm thinking a little outside the box. I was always trained in Boston, and both from my family and at my high school, that public service is an important thing. So I'm looking ahead. I formed a political action committee called One New York Together, and I really the purpose of that is to foster a dialogue about New York City. I really don't think we're talking about New York City enough right now, and I really want to have an educational forum for myself in a way, but for everybody else who wants to be involved about what are the fundamental issues that New York should be focusing on right now. What is the vision for New York? I think people have a sense of pride. If you're a New Yorker and you travel away from New York and you meet someone and they ask you where you're from and you say you're from New York, I feel like we puff out our chests a little bit. We have an immense pride in our city. But I don't want to lose that. I think we need to maintain the pride. And this is not a national conversation in any way, but woe be our country if New York weren't the financial capital of our country, and would not end up as the cultural capital of our country, and just really all in all being the greatest city that I know.
As we approach the close, can you share any final insights, thoughts for the listeners of Mind Your Business?
Yeah, for any of you who are curious about One New York Together, our website is the numeral 1 ny.nyc. I'd be interested in any of you who want to talk to us about our work in that organization. I think we're going to do good work. I think we're going to help New York City. To the extent that any of you want to get involved, please contact us. But I would just say stay proud of New York City, whether you live in New York City or not. I think we should all be proud of New York City. And I think be willing to volunteer to make it great. I think consider public service. Consider the fact that wouldn't it be great if the young people that came to New York City came here with the hope of a great career, but also with the understanding that we expect that it would be a very good thing for them to be community involved and pitch in.
77 WABC Radio presents Mind Your Business, hosted by founder and president of Bottom Line Marketing Group, Yitzchok Saftlas. Mind Your Business focuses on business and marketing strategies for success.